you had to pick one food.
I like where you're going. I don't know how it's related.
From Stranger Things, what would it be? Because I'll tell you what food it would be.
I mean, the pudding, obviously.
Homeboy's Burgers in episode 1. I can't remember the guy's name. Benny's Burgers. Benny's Burgers. That's what I would eat. That's what I want to try, because that looked like a fucking amazing hamburger.
I could see that.
Plus, I feel bad for Benny.
Yeah, no, he didn't deserve that at all.
No. Benny is the best man.
I mean, we'll never know how great a man that Benny could have been. It's the unfortunate thing.
Yeah. He struck me as ex-military. Friend of Hopper's,
Right.
Made burgers for the children,
That's one of the things that I'm really hoping is season 2 we get a little bit more detail about Hopper.
Yeah, his background.
We find out why he's so motivated to find Will and help out with everything, because he's like, yeah, I dealt with loss and chitlins and shit, and I don't want bad shit to happen to chitlins. Like, that's cool. That's awesome. But, how he's so badass is something that I would like to know.
Well, I like the, obviously, everybody out there, TBD people, welcome. We're talking about Stranger Things. I always assumed that it was because of how much of the small town attitude he has, I feel like he probably grew up there, moved away when he was 18, was various kinds of badass, became a cop in the big city, was various kinds of badass, lost his child, and then was like, alright, I'll move back to my hometown and drink myself to death.
No, these are all good choices.
But yeah, I'd like to actually see that illuminated instead of just dark references to your time in the city hop.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I'm thinking that his wife is also probably passed on, but I don't know, and I'd like concrete conclusion, because he talks about his daughter being with his wife.
Oh, he talks to her on the phone.
You're right. Sorry about that.
She's with her new husband and her new baby.
I don't know why I just skipped over that in the rewatch.
It's okay. I was like, unless we are also including the Hopper is schizophrenic hypothesis, which I'm not 100% against, but I don't think there's been a full conclusive argument made for that as of yet.
No.
So I enjoyed this rewatch because it illuminated a couple of other little minor issues for me.
Okay.
That I hadn't had before. And actually, surprisingly, my one issue the first time I watched it bothered me considerably less this time than it had on my first watch. I was too harsh.
Mm.
So, on my first watch, the big thing that stood out to me was I loved absolutely everything, and everything was really precisely done, except for the line about friend, where the kid's definition of friend as given to 11 is just intrinsically important to the way that she deals with them for the rest of the show.
Mm-hmm.
The way that they all communicate with each other. That definition of friend, which they have to give her because she doesn't know what it means. And during the flashback sequence to the second time she's in the bathtub, she's scared, and Dr. McDickbag is like, they're friends.
See, I don't have any problem with that, and I didn't have any problem with that on the first watch, because you look at Elle in her limited capacity of how she's dealing with stuff, and yes, she's an individual, and yes, she has these crazy amount of powers, but it's also animalistic in terms of base nature. So you look at who's telling her that, and their tone with that. And it's somebody who, although he's fucked up, she still has the whole daddy thing, and it's a very reassuring tone.
But it's also a word she doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, my issue there is that the assumption would be, from the fact that she has an incredibly limited vocabulary, there's a ton of words she doesn't know, that they've used specific language with her entire life for encoding. That's something that you do if you're trying to, mentally program someone in a particular way. You, make sure you completely control the language that you use with them. all of the other scenes with the two of them, he uses really controlled language. So using that word implies that that's not the only time he was using that word. To me.
Okay.
Like, that doesn't make sense to me that that's the only time in her entire life that anyone said that word to her.
No, in a vacuum, I get that it could be seen as an inconsistency. But again, looking at it in terms of Elle being very animalistic and, you know, these are things that she doesn't understand in her environment and dealing it with it in terms of, again, the tone of how things are being explained when she feels comfortable to question her environment and who's telling her the various pieces of information.
Yeah.
Like, I get the whole controlled language thing. I think that's minor and it's never been a problem for me.
No, I feel you. It is the kind of thing that directly bothers me because I'm like, you made this word such a huge deal in the script in multiple episodes and as part of the thematic through line of this character. That's just sloppy. Like, even if there is a justification for it, why didn't you phrase that line literally any other way so that you don't have the overlap with, but wait, why was this a thing? And I will say that on my second watch through, I agree that that scene works better because there's less of an implication. I still have the problem with the controlled language, but there's less of an implication of her actually relaxing. It looks like on the second rewatch, her body relaxes and her eyes remain vigilant. So she's responding to him being like, it's alright, they're friends, the tone being like, okay, I'll pretend to be cool. I'm not actually comfortable. And I was like, okay, that actually totally works. It still irks me that he uses this word that at other times was not known. But that core thing didn't bother me as much. And that's part of why I was explaining, like, the first time I had that reaction. This time I didn't have as much of that reaction. There were just some kind of sloppy moments of, like, how did that timing work out?
For sure.
And why didn't those people just talk?
So we can get into more of that in a little bit. My big thing on my first watch was Lucas. I really disliked Lucas as a character.
Okay.
And it's the way he deals with the situations that he's in. And it's frustrating because you want everything to work out, you want everybody to gel together, and it just doesn't happen, and it's understandable. But the character irked me the first time because, again, I was just experiencing it, you know, what's going to happen type thing, rather than already knowing A leads to B leads to C. So, watching it a second time, I was like, you know what? I had my problems with Lucas, but he's also totally justifiable as a character. Like, when characters suck, it's not because they're bad, it's because they're being really realistic for who they would be in that time period.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, props for that across the board.
No, and everybody did such a great job of that. And especially, like, my first time I was like, but Lucas, just be down with the D&D party. You just got a spellcaster, bro. Be into it. And, like, on my rewatch, I was like, no. Lucas is the guy who's like, she has people with guns looking for her.
Right.
We need to stop dealing with this crazy woman who showed up out of nowhere and find our fucking friend. And I was like, okay, I get you, Lucas. I get you. I think you should have been more open-minded, but I get where you're coming from. You're like, I don't want to deal with the cops on this. I don't want to deal with whoever has guns. I don't want to... Fuck all of this. Fuck all of this. And he's actually the one who, like, goes out and finds the fucking portal, who actually does the mapping. He, like, maps it out and, like, makes the plans. And I was like, Lucas, hell yeah.
He's like, screw you guys. I'm gonna save Will.
Fucking save Will. Like, I'm actually on fucking point here. And backing it up for the audience, Stranger Things, in case you don't know, which most of you probably do, is a Netflix show. Excuse me. Is a Netflix show released, I guess, about a year ago?
Yeah, it was released July 15th, 2016.
Yeah. And is essentially... 4 kids in the 80s who were in a D&D campaign together, have a late night session one night. One of them rides his bike home alone and disappears. And the rest of them are attempting to find him because, goddammit, we're the D&D party and we don't leave our own, like, out in the cold.
Leave no man behind.
At the same time, the DM's older sister is, rebelling against, her small town life and is kind of like trying to hang out with the bad kids, even though she's like one of the nerds, and that through line something that bugs me, whatever. But essentially, it is the slow gathering of forces of all of the people who care about the kid who has disappeared, coming together to form the ultimate D&D party and rescue him from Demogorgon. And I'm not going to explain any of that. Because you got to watch the goddamn show. And it's fantastic. I watched it the first time about 2 months after it came out. I was house sitting. And it was like 11 p.m. And I was chilling with the people's dog. And I was like, I want to watch something. But I just finished watching Burn Notice. I want to watch. And I was like, people told me to watch Stranger Things. I'll watch like an episode or two. See what's... And I watched the whole thing.
Oh yeah, that's.
I didn't go to sleep.
It's 8 episodes, and it's definitely like if you can do it, like best seen in a one shot. Like, I started watching it because I'd heard things. The interesting thing is it's a show that like gripped the mass consciousness in a lot of ways. There were a lot of references to it and a lot of fandom for it, but there weren't a lot of like spoilers for it.
Yeah,
which is
I love.
Weird. Just in general, like in this day and age, like there'll be an episode of something like Game of Thrones that'll come out on TV, and then people will be avoiding social media because there'll be Game of Thrones spoilers and shit like that. But there wasn't anything, at least in my circle, for Stranger Things. It was people being like, "No, you should watch this."
It's like, I'm not saying a goddamn word about what happens. You're gonna have to discover this shit, which I appreciated.
Oh yeah, but it was interesting to me because BoJack Horseman season 3 came out a week later. And I didn't see Stranger Things when it came out. I binged BoJack the night it came out, like I do for BoJack. And then when I saw Stranger Things, like probably a couple months down the road, I was like, wow, I should have just seen this twice instead of seeing BoJack season 3.
Aww.
Like, it's not like BoJack season 3 is irredeemable, but like it's the level of like I really like this, and I was not a huge fan of BoJack season 3, so I should have just spent my time.
When a man binges BoJack.
So
had to do that.
Your problem was with Nancy, because that was
our
something.
manifold. I get it, and again, I don't like it's. She is a realistic teenage character, especially of the time. But there's like so much of like as stupid and kind of silly and like set piecey as the mother's repeated, "You can talk to me." She actually fucking means it. And none of them avail themselves of that massive resource that's like right there. And it's literally her being like, "You just lied to the cops. I'm not mad at you about sleeping with this guy. I'm mad at you because you lied to the cops when your friend is missing." And her being like, why does it matter if I slept with him? Because you lied to the cops. That's why, Nancy. Your mom's trying to make that point. And instead you're going to run away and she's going to be like, "No, Nancy, I'd
like to see Karen be more of a thing in season 2, because there's the random things with her. Like when she's like, "I feel like we should be out looking for our boys," and the husband's like, no, the cops will take care of it. And there's also the bit with when Nancy escapes and she pulls out her hairpin and picks the lock with her fucking hairpin. I'm like, okay, Karen, clearly you have a backstory here.
No, like Karen's got background. I want to hear way the fuck more about that. That's super goddamn cool. Like, but so like Nancy again, I get what they were doing with Nancy. But it still irks the crap out of me, dude.
It's interesting because I like Nancy because I think she is very real for the time period, the age. I think they did her well, and I'm sorry that she irks you so much.
Oh, I think they did her well too. I'm not debating that she's done well. Like,
I don't know. There's something about that, like being torn in two directions, and what you want to do, what society tells you to do, and trying to like stay true to who you are.
And that's something that I really liked, is there is that point where it's like, I just see you trying to be someone you're not. And she's like, "I am not doing that. I am being who I am, you schmuck. You don't fucking know me." And I really liked that at the end of it, she stays with the guy she's with.
Steve.
Like, and again, like, I don't like Steve. But I get Steve. I knew people like Steve. He actually, like, is, like, visually, like, a direct cross between two people I knew in high school. No. And behavior-wise,
he literally looks like stereotypical, like, teenage asshole.
And I have my issues with Steve. But at the end of the day, Steve does learn. Steve does change. He does actually care about Nancy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been a crazy schmuck clown.
No, I really like Steve, and I think they handled him really well. You spend 6.5 episodes absolutely fucking hating him, and at the end you like him or are okay with him to some level.
Yeah, I still dislike the guy, but I respect and understand where he's coming from, and I really liked narratively the fact that Nancy doesn't like, I leave you when I get with Jonathan. Which they totally could have done. And I think would have been shitty and a cop-out and is like, see, I have earned your love through being cool now. Hey-oh. Which is like a creepy thing in like a lot of film that really bugs me, where I'm like, that doesn't change histocompatibility. Like, I may like Jonathan better. Jonathan is also a fucking schmuck.
Oh, yeah.
Part of what I love about the piece, the entire piece, is that nobody is, like, all the way likable. Like, they make everybody real and have, like, super likable aspects, and also aspects where you're like, oh my god, really?
I don't know. I can see that. I really like Hopper. I really like Mike. I really like Dustin. Toothless.
Dustin is toothless.
I really like Elle, obviously. I mean, I can see what you're talking about, but I disagree
flawed.
On my... Yeah, and I think that's part of what makes them likable.
Yeah, but I mean, it also, there are these, like, big-ass areas where I'm like, you're real and you're flawed, and that's wonderful, but there's also these areas where I'm like, that ain't no. Like, when Jonathan's taking the pictures, and I'm like, no, Jonathan.
Well, I'm not the biggest fan of... The only time I really like Jonathan is when he's beating the shit out of Steve. Like, that's
the only time you like Jonathan. I like Jonathan a bunch. I think that he's, again, like... Every character I have that, like-dislike problem. Like the one with Hopper where he, like, goes to evidence. And it's like, you could have called. And he's like, I don't know who you are. Like, I mean, Hop doesn't give a shit.
Yes.
And has been basically throwing grenades out the window wildly since his marriage fell apart. And again, I understand that, but that's also something where I'm like... There are consequences to your actions, Hop. Like, come on, meow. Come on, meow. And all of the characters are doing that. They all have these areas where they're totally irrational and just do shitty-ass stuff. Because they're flawed real people. And that's part of why, like, I can't, like, I'm okay. I dislike Steve, but I'm okay with Steve at the end. Because there was a progression there.
Right.
And even though Nancy is a pain in the ass, a bunch, because of her age... She is actually cool. She is actually someone who cares. At the end, she does throw down to try and save Will and Barbara. R.I.P. Rest in pieces.
I will never get that sub-fandom. Like, I understand that, like, Barb is a pitiable character. That, like, she is somebody of moral standing who gets shit on and doesn't really deserve to die and dies.
Yeah.
But... Also, like, she didn't really provide much other than reminding Nancy that she's not a shit... She shouldn't be a shit person. Like, that was Barb's point.
Yes, and to be a way to loop... She was a plot hook to get Nancy in to the main campaign. I completely
agree. And, like, I've been in situations like Barb, where you're at a party and friends like, oh, stop me if I start doing this, and you're like, hey... You know, you want to maybe not, and they just fucking ignore you. You're like, all right, well, cool. I guess I'm not needed here. Like, I've been in those shoes.
Yeah.
But it's just like, the level of overstating the character for what the character is and meant to the plot.
Oh yeah,
It's just It's insane to me.
I think that she's an important plot hook.
Yeah.
I think that the influence that she has and the influence her death has on Nancy is really important for Nancy becoming who she is.
I agree.
And I think that she's a clue to the greater scheme of what's happening on the other side of the rip.
Mm.
Everything with her death. So I think she's important for those things. And I'm also just sad for her as a person.
The first thing I said
pitiable.
Yeah.
Because, again, literally everyone just believes she ran away. Like,
And
that is
nobody besides possibly Nancy gives a fuck. Like, everybody's like, oh, Will.
And she ran away. She's a teenager who ran away. Which is, again, one of those things. The child goes missing, it's whatever. The teenager goes missing, they ran away. Whatever. It doesn't fucking matter.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, to me, was such a wonderfully telling thing. And I was actually discussing this, I think it was last night, and they've said that they're going to deal more with that aftermath in season 2, which I like, because now they've all agreed to never talk about what happened. They know what happened to Barb. They now can't talk about it. None of them are actually particularly good liars. It's like the one skill, like, massively missing from the squad, like, from that D&D campaign is they don't have anyone with a bluff check. Hopper has, like, a +5 and rolled a single nat 20 on a bluff. Like...
The spelling bee thing.
Yes. Like, He's just... Nobody can do it. So, as soon as Barb's parents
speaking of this
strictly
are like, in D&D terms, I think he can use his Intimidate to help with his bluff.
There is actually a feat that allows you to do
I'm
that.
aware.
There's a synergy bonus also. However, this is my point. Like, they don't bluff well. None of them do. So, in 6 months, a year, when Barb is still missing...
Right.
Hasn't contacted her family with whom she's close. Hasn't contacted any friends. That's the point where parents start being like, you need to look into this. This isn't my child running away. They go to Hopper. Hopper can't say anything. Hopper can't lie. They can tell Hopper's lying and knows something. They start pushing further into it. That's a great through line of something going on. And I really hope that they deal with that, like, all the way. Because it's like, okay, I can totally buy that the town was like, meh, she ran away.
Mm-hmm.
But when she's not back and hasn't called in, like, a year, her parents are gonna, like...
Yeah. But the other thing is, you kind of get the feeling throughout all this, the other small-town cops besides Hopper are kind of worthless.
I think one of them is worthless. I think that, what's his face?
I don't remember any of their names. So you can use whatever descriptor you want.
No, he plays, Turk Barrett. Turk Barrett the cop. Turk Barrett Cop Edition.
Okay.
He plays a character on, like, all of the Marvel shows.
Okay.
The guy who plays the black of the two cops, like the two other small town cops.
Right,
There's the white dude and the black
right.
dude. The black dude plays Turk Barrett, which is funny to me because he's basically Turk Barrett the cop in that. He's actually somewhat competent. Like, there's 2 or 3 moments where he shows that he really actually knows what he's doing. He just doesn't have to care 99% of the time because he's in Bumble Scum...
Hawkins, Indiana.
Thank you.
Hence the name Hawkins Lab, but you know, whatever.
I'm sorry. I can never remember the goddamn name of the town. I can't remember the name of the lab. I can't remember a bunch of that shit with that. Like, there's so many names on the show. That's actually one of my hardest problems is being like, oh my god, what's the fucking name?
I'm awful with names normally. Like, I don't know. Like, I finished the last part of my binge rewatch last night, which I think it may have been that, like, last minute cram that, like, usually is ill-advised and goes horribly wrong, but it's actually sticking for some reason right now.
Because it's actually the proper way to watch Stranger Things, I think, because it's actually just a 6-hour movie. Like...
Yeah, but names are definitely on point for me right now. The other thing that I think is really interesting is so many times you see the middle of some action, where some...
Yes.
somebody comes into something and there's a teacher or somebody who knows exactly what's going on, or it's a situation that's happened before. But with Stranger Things, it's the convergence of their plane of existence with this other plane of existence, and us exploring the rules of the other plane of existence as it's unfolding.
Yeah.
Which I absolutely love, and which makes me even more excited for season 2.
Yeah. Well, and it is so much of like to me it looks like some kind of superorganism.
Mm-hmm.
And I only watched the very beginning of the new trailer. I watched like the first minute of the trailer for season 2, and I was like, all right, superorganism, looks like it's being confirmed. I love the concept of really working out like an alien superorganism, something like that. And the more that I can see, I don't want to know anything else about the season. I literally don't want to know a single other bit of anything about the season.
Well, I did want to talk about the trailer and some
Okay.
spoilers in it, but I will refrain for your sake.
No,
there are some things that were spoiled in the trailer that I really wish weren't. It definitely has me intrigued.
Damn it.
And I'm excited for it, but...
See, now I have a moral quandary. It's my responsibility as a journalist to discuss this in front of our audience.
Because as TBD, we are journalists of the highest moral standing.
Of course, we aren't just men of science, we're men of hope.
Right.
And we're not just men of hope, we're men of science.
It's the endless knot, as it were.
Yes, the eternal singularity. But I also really don't want to know spoilers. Like, that's literally why I got to, like, the end of the scene in the arcade, and I was like, okay, anything after this, I'm going to be getting too much. This is, like, opening...
Okay. Yeah, do not feel bad. I will not continue. Just suffice it to say that there are things that most people who watched season 1 would have guessed anyways, but I wished were confirmed organically over the course of watching season 2 rather than shown in the trailer.
Yeah, okay. No, I feel that. Yeah, I feel like the trailers for that have to be, like, completely, like, vague. Like, not giving you anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not feel like they were going to accomplish that.
No. It's very interesting, and I'm still... That's one of those things that, like, again, there are so many... Because we're at the beginning in terms of, like, the laws of the universe and this other plane and how all these things are going to mesh together and work, it's, even though that there are spoilers in it, it's still intriguing to me to figure out how things are going to come about.
Yeah, what the mechanics are.
It's not always the destination, it's the journey between. And when there's so much of the unknown because you don't know how rules work...
Yeah. Are there multiple of these?
Then it becomes even more about...
Yeah. Well, and the way I always... Like, my theory has always been that this is essentially a quantum reality jumping superorganism. So they found a very nearby quantum reality that has essentially all the same shit, just where the events of Stranger Things have already taken place. They burst through that whole world got taken over. And they wait around in that world, and they can tear open portals, or they wait for someone to come to them. Because they discovered that, hey, these squishy pink things keep trying to push through, so we'll just wait for them to push through, and then we'll take it. And I feel like that's a huge part of what's going on, is it's this, like, superorganism that's eating quantum realities. And I'm really hoping they go in that direction. But again, it's all going to be in their implementation. I don't know how they're going to do that. I want to be shocked. I want to be surprised. And that was something that they did narratively with the show, that there were obviously certain elements that I was able to predict, but they also went places with it that I wasn't expecting. I was also frustrated that they didn't actually apply their, like, heaviest hitters in terms of D&D strategy. Like, I know why they sent Hopper and I want to call her Matilda.
Joyce?
Will's mom?
Joyce.
I don't know
Pretty
why I
fucking
wanted
far
to call
from Matilda.
I know. I don't know why I wanted to call Winona Matilda either. But Joyce. Into the thing because, you know, it was like they're the adults. They're going to have to, like, fight like government agents, too. Like, we need our heaviest badasses there. But they never go into combat with the thing.
Well...
Legit never. Because they don't, like... They do, like, heavy damage to it, but it's got regeneration. Again, we're using D&D terms because literally the show is a giant D&D campaign. Like, the thing has regeneration, so it runs away from the kids. And then they follow the blood to Will. Mm-hmm. And then it leaves the nest, and then goes and fucks with all the government guys. So it's one of those things where I'm like, they could have killed it if, like, they, had, like, cornered it with machine guns after it had been injured by the kids. Like, you hit it with all your strength. You don't hit it with piecemeal strength. Like... Yes,
but, I mean, there's enough unknown unknowns and enough pieces moving in different directions. The biggest crime that I think happened... is everybody leaving all the kids. The teenagers leaving the kids, the parents leaving the kids, like...
Well, again...
Them just straight getting abandoned without saying anything. Well, like, Mike leaving and being like, well, there's nobody here now.
I guess we take off now that the fucking dudes are here.
Like,
well, and, I mean, that was poor. But that was also, like... It makes sense. Hopper doesn't care about 11. Joyce doesn't care about 11. Only the kids care about 11. And the teenagers leaving made sense because they're like, man, fuck everything. It's the problem when you don't have clear party leadership and or, like, group party strategy. When Hopper is the one making your strategies, and Hopper is the one who's like, so, my strategy for breaking into the facility a second time is to walk in with a gun.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about the show being a giant D&D campaign, but they're all people.
Yeah.
Like, they're not coming at it from that angle in terms of, like, strategizing and everything. They're being realistic
full role-playing.
And, like,
I love
Elle's probably, like, a level 7 or 8 at least. Hopper's probably, like, a 4 or 5, and everybody else is, like, a level 0 Civ. Like...
I would give, from Jonathan and What's-Her-Name's thing, they're like level 1 characters.
Okay. Sure.
Like, the fucking sister, Nancy. Nancy is way too good with the gun, off the bat, to not be a level 1 PC. And Jonathan and Spike Bat, again, these are like level 1 fighters, who are like, ha ha! I've gotten my first level of player character levels. Yeah! And yeah, they still, like, suck. But they win because of traps. But that's, like, the only effective thing that's done against the boss. Like, you don't split the party. Damn it. You don't split the party.
No,
Again, I know why they do it. I totally understand why I do it. But I'm also just like, you fucking clowns. Like, you fools. As D&D players, the kids should have made the point that you don't split the party again then, though probably Hopper would have been like, I don't give a fuck about your nerd games, and walked out anyway.
And Joyce is going to find Will, and yeah. Still have the end point being the end point.
Yeah. Oh, can we talk about Lonnie for a minute?
Which?
Will's father.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
The most worthless crap stack of a man.
He's kind of cute. Maybe I'll trade you in for the younger model.
The single worst thing ever. Like, I just hate Lonnie.
No.
I hate everything about him. I hate his face. I hate his car. Like, I fucking hate him. I wanted him to take the bat. I wanted his ass to get taken to the upside down. Like, oh my god. Like, if there's a person I hate almost as much... We need
blood to draw the monster. All right, Lonnie.
All right, Lonnie. It's time for you to finally be useful as a father.
Can you lay down on this bear trap for us? Nothing bad'll happen, I swear.
We're gonna kick your ass with bats until a monster comes to take you away to Hellland. Lonnie, you're finally doing God's work. But yeah, I'm sorry. I just had to put that out there because I'd forgotten how much I fucking hated Lonnie, and I got back to that plot line, and I was like, oh, I remember he's kind of a schmuck.
No.
Oh, that's right. He's nothing but schmuck.
Yeah, when he shows up again, and there's that whole conversation between him and Joyce about, like, oh, we can get this money and we're going to send Jonathan to college. And she's like, where does Jonathan want to go to college? You fucking tell me. It
doesn't fucking matter. He can go anywhere he wants.
It's like, tell me.
NYU. He's wanted to go to NYU since he was 6 fucking years old, Lonnie.
Like,
get
that
your
moment
shit
is
together,
like,
Lonnie.
You're not being a dad now, nor have you ever been a dad. Like,
Never
fuck
been
you.
A dad. Never been a dad. Oh, God. I also think one of the strongest elements, beyond even the story, I've always felt that the story and the characters both are incredibly strong elements in the show, which is something that you rarely get in conjunction. Mm-hmm. Like, both really strong characters and really strong plot. Like, the plot fits together wonderfully and intricately, the pieces do move. There's some of that wonderful movie chance magic where it's like, okay, the actual chances of these two people being in exactly the same place at exactly the same time are, like, astronomically low, and okay, well, all right, I will buy it because it's a movie, but okay, that's a little bit thin. There's some of that, but other than that, like, I think that the plot is incredibly solid, characters are incredibly solid, the cinematography is fucking beautiful, and I love a lot of what they do with it. One of my favorite elements from the whole thing, which I hadn't realized on the first watch through, was how well they show passage of time. There's all these beautiful little cut sequences where it'll show the beginning of an activity for like 2 seconds, the middle of the activity, and then the end of the activity. And just boom, boom, boom. I've moved us forward like 6 hours. And it was efficient, it was clean, it wasn't melodramatic, it wasn't a montage, but with those same advantages narratively as a montage of showing, like, these emotional main points as we're, like, moving through this long period of time. And they did it throughout. Like, anytime they needed to do that forward cut, they just did these really spare, lean, beautiful little bits like that. And especially with how lush the rest of the show is, both in visual and sound design, having the simplicity and the cleanness of those moments, I thought was wonderful. Because it just kept it sharp and it kept it clean. And never let it get bogged down in itself, where it totally could have, like, gotten ponderous, under its own weight. But instead was able to be both lush and spare in the proper moments.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree, and it's been amazing to me. I mean, it's not been a consistent thing throughout, but the amount of production value that can be thrown down on something like this that is just a Netflix show, and it's not necessarily something that even, like, had legs. Like, it was the first season of the show. Like, there was no guarantee that it was going to be a hit. Like, you had, some star power in it. You had, great story, great casting, great characters, but even so, there's no guarantee for success. And the amount that they were able to throw down to make the production what it was, or how they worked with what they were given. I'm not sure which it is more so, or if it's a combination of the two, but truly impressive. Something branching off of this that I wanted to say is I absolutely love the soundtrack for this.
Oh.
Like, I remember when people were ranting and raving to me about how amazing the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack was. And I finally saw the movie and I was like, this really isn't for me. But this is...
No, it's like the classic rock and R&B thing. Like,
this is the equivalent of how everybody was ranting and raving about the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack. Like, I love the intro song. I love, like every track that's used fits so well for the scene. And most of them are tracks that I enjoy anyway. It's just like, oh my god, like...
The youth of the Clash's should I stay in, should I stay or should I go now throughout. The just like even the intro, like the whole nine. So beautifully done.
I just wanted to take a second and mention.
Well, and like the soundscapes that they managed to create, like the wonderful, like these like throbbing, enveloping soundscapes that they create in so many of the moments that they just do so well. And going to even beyond the music, just the sound design, all of the sound design that they do with dealing with the other side and dealing with, like, the portal to the other side, the air infiltrates that are coming through and all of that, like the tiny little sound cues from all of that. There's so much to build that feeling of alienness and of unease. There was one other just, like, fantastic sound design moment, and I can't remember now what it was. But also jumping back to your point about the Netflix budgets, I think it's one of those beautiful things where Netflix hit a certain point and they were like, okay, how did HBO come back? By realizing that they had to just be willing to throw down mass quantities of money on these things and take the chance. How is Adult Swim successful? Like, I don't know if they directly looked at Adult Swim, but it's another thing where they have this model of, we take pretty fat budgets and throw them on people with, like, no background, no experience based on their pitch, and we see what comes out. And I think Netflix saw that and realized that they had such a deep pockets because they were the original streaming service and they had the money from that, like, the real deep pocket money for that they were like, fuck it, and started, like, putting it in. And the more that they got returns on it, the more they've realized you have to bet bigger or it doesn't succeed.
I still feel like there are shows that they really they've gotten a level of credibility, but I also feel like there's shows that they release that are not up to, like, snuff. Not necessarily in terms of content, but in terms of, like, production quality.
Interesting.
Like, they just didn't throw down as much.
See, and that's something where I've definitely seen ones that I thought were not as high of quality, but still, they definitely had thrown down for, like, production value and, like, the whole nine. Where I was like, okay, cool, but what? And again, I think that's interesting then. So then they're figuring which productions. It's like, oh, this is a production that could get by with less money. We'll give them less money. This is a production that, okay, you need an otherworldly beast and a portal to the other side. We're going to have to give you 10 mil. Like, you know. And then, you know, that's an understandable split to make. But I like that idea of, and now they've encouraged, you know, Amazon, Hulu, all of these other things to start making their own original shows now, which a lot of it has been garbage, but a lot of Netflix's early stuff was garbage. And they're also now producing really, really unique work. Like, IFC did Brockmire, like, as an original thing. And I think Brockmire is unique and brilliant.
I know nothing of it.
Brockmire, legendary sportscaster for baseball in, I think, St. Louis.
Okay.
Gives his final broadcast in, like, 2008. Because during the broadcast, he melts down, gets incredibly drunk, and says live on the radio in graphic detail about coming home early the night before because it was his 30th anniversary of telling his wife that he loved her. And he came home early with her favorite flowers, and she was plowing the next door neighbor with a strap on. And found out that it had been going on for years.
Right.
And she considered herself a sexual astronaut. And his life melts down, and he, like just lays out this brutal monologue on the loudspeaker, like, in the stadium and on the radio. Loses his job, falls into deep depression, and begins traveling the world, calling different kinds of sports matches all over the place. Like, he's calling cockfights in Manila, and hates his life, and gets a message from somebody back in the U.S. in, like, small town in, like, whatever state he was originally from. And goes there, and they're like, we have a broadcasting gig for you. For baseball. And it's the minor leagues, and he's going to be broadcast online, and it's entirely based on what he didn't know, which is that all of his shit from that earlier incident went viral. So they're selling him because he is a viral joke.
Right.
And it yielded me some of my all-time favorite, like, single one-liners. I saw the first episode of it, and I was just like, my God, this is incredible. There's, like, a rant where he's going on where, like, the woman who hired him was like, no, I am not as broken as you are. I am not the same as you. And he's just like, honey, we are both running from God's sniper, zigzagging desperately, knowing that if we stop or turn around for even one moment, we will be struck down for our sins. Like, it is so good. So, like, Brockmire came out of that. Man in the Tall Castle, which is supposed to, or Man in the High Tower, which is supposed to be fucking amazing, came out of Amazon. Actually, 2 buddies of mine just got a comedy show on Amazon, which I have to watch and give them their, like, mad props because they're awesome. And
cool.
Yeah, Spencer. Doty?
Yes.
Yeah, like, he and his brother, like, are on a comedy show that, like, is premiering on Amazon in, like, 3 days.
I've hung out / seen Spencer maybe once or twice.
Okay,
and they weren't great experiences.
No, Phil. No, we went to high school together.
So
I know the guy.
Cool for him.
That was a while where he did some.
Yeah,
some
I'm not gonna repeat.
Yeah,
my least savory experience of him.
I think I know the one that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But regardless, like, there's been some really cool stuff coming out of these things because of the fact that, like, I feel like Netflix was like, we have all this cash. We have this business that's based on all of these other things, but it's based around film. Why don't we use it to push film forward?
Well, I also think that we're seeing a lot more of a shift in terms of how people watch and consume things.
Yes.
There's so much more that, whether it's YouTube or Vimeo or sites like that, or streaming services, that many more people are watching them, and they're not watching traditional TV, or when they are watching traditional TV, it's on one of those streamable services.
Yeah.
And because of that, you have the shift in where the money's flowing, who's able to produce the content and everything. It was interesting to me when Cartoon Network / Adult Swim had their tentative contract with Netflix. It was like basically just like first seasons of a couple shows that were on there for the most part.
Yeah.
But when those shows got added to Netflix, Cartoon Network / Adult Swim's revenue dropped so dramatically that they actually lost money, even though Netflix was paying for those licenses.
Oh, no, I know, which is why they pulled it from Netflix, put it on Hulu, and then had it exclusively new seasons on Hulu, and then old seasons on AdultSwim.com, which I believe was what they moved to afterwards. And now they've, I think, full moved it to Hulu, because AdultSwim.com stopped being the portal it used to be.
But again, it's just interesting to me how drastic the shift is becoming, and how you can see the shift being played out in, a network losing money by adding streamable content elsewhere. And even though they're getting paid for the license, they're losing that much viewership from it.
Yeah, and the ad revenue thereof. And I think it is the heralding of a new age, but it also gives the opportunity for, again, people have gotten super into binge watching. Like, I know I'm certainly not satisfied, watching, all right, this is a 14-episode progressive storyline, I guess I'll watch an episode a week. It doesn't work. And so the more that we can move towards that idea of, like, okay, we have, like, this entertainment here, we can, like, actually make these, like, longer complete works. And as I've ranted about numerous previous podcasts, the beauty of them truly being able to create long-form artworks now that are in 8 episodes, 12 episodes, that kind of thing, I think that is a lot more supported by Netflix or a streaming style than it is by a television style. So I think we can thank Netflix for all of that. And Stranger Things is being a great example of that is more and more. Like, I know it was like another one of those things where it was like, Daredevil dropped. Oh my god, everybody wanted like Daredevil was incredible. It was the best thing ever. And then there was like some other show, and then Stranger Things dropped, and it was something like double the numbers for Daredevil's debut. And just looking at like that kind of like increase in market, even in that amount of time of being willing to trust, like, okay, here's this thing that Netflix threw a bunch of money behind. I'll trust their judgment. I'll go to it. And it is something where more and more I've trusted their judgment. For me, seeing a Netflix original used to be in, okay, I'll watch it when I'm drunk. And now is like okay, that might be decent. Like, what the fuck is this? Netflix produced it. Okay, cool. It's probably decently well done. And I love that, watching that shift happen even within myself, of having that different attitude.
I agree, and it's also interesting. It's been interesting to me to see them reach out in different ways, because in addition to the live action shows that they've been licensing, they've also been picking up licensing properties for anime, and either bankrolling it or helping it transition to the West, which I really like. just as a fan of that. I don't even want to call it a genre because there's so many subgenres with it. But that platform, that art style, that presentation.
Yeah.
And I think that's wonderful. We've also strayed far. I mean, I realize this has all been connected back to Stranger Things and the overarching thing, but
talking about like the budget of that.
Yeah, you mentioned other problems you had on a second rewatch, and I may be a bad direction to go as we're drawing towards an end. But what were the other problems you had with Stranger Things? I really want to know.
I'm trying to remember exactly what they were, and this is in part because I did my binge through watch last week. Mm. So there were a couple of details that caught on me at the end where I was like, yeah. And it was mainly frustration with the Nancy thing.
Okay.
The appearance of the monster in extremely convenient places.
Uh-huh.
And the monster's inability to catch Will from the way he was originally kidnapped. And I understand that, like, they transitioned through the portal. It wasn't that the thing pulled him through the portal, which is what's initially implied.
Right.
And then Will ran.
Mm-hmm.
But when Barb was ported in an even closer location to the thing, and then the thing leaves and then comes back, she was still screwed. Like, that to me was just something that rang a little more untrue the second time, because I was like, why was Will magically able to escape even when the thing was right the fuck on top of him? And, like, Barb not only wasn't able to escape, but was, like, instantly killed and turned into a breeding ground. Like, that bugs me. And there were a couple other little things like that during it where I was like, you haven't, like, this is just too coincidental. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying you haven't dealt with how it worked.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, that's a little thin. Because this is a little too coincidental.
Okay.
So there were a couple of moments like that there throughout it. And unfortunately, they're not immediately popping up. Again, they were super minor. This is like probably this is definitely top 10 for TV shows that I've watched. Could possibly be top 5 in terms of overall quality. If not for, like, number of times I've watched it. Because that's Star Trek,
right.
Bird Notice, Harvey Birdman, and Futurama. Like, you know. God, that's a depressing list.
Hey man, it's your list in your life.
No,
like, there's nobody to blame there but you.
No, I don't blame anyone else for my sins. But yeah, so those were kind of my issues, and I'm sorry, I wish I had some more concrete ones. But that's the big one I'm thinking of immediately, where I was just like, that doesn't make sense that he was able to get away so easily. Afterwards, there was, like, one thing with Brenner where I was like, y'all did not explain what this deal was with Bremer. Like, and the whole, like, oh, Levin's mom is catatonic from the acid and the trauma. And I'm like, it is not actually that hard to get a test showing whether or not you were ever pregnant. Or you ever gave birth. Like there's specific signs that you gave birth. That you were both pregnant and that you gave birth.
Right.
And it is kind of nuts to me that her sister, like, didn't, like, go get that testing done in, like, a state away. Because you could drive, like, a state away.
Right.
And get the testing done. And then you wouldn't have, like, Brenner standing there with a machine gun, like, during testing. And you'd actually get, like, testing done. So I was like, y'all didn't explore options.
Well, yeah. It's one of those things that, like, that specifically, I mean, they talk about, like, oh, she never had the baby because she miscarried. So there's some things there that would have, yes, that would have been evidence, but it would have been pointing a specific way that would have already lined up with a false narrative.
That's true. Some of that could be true.
The thing that's abundantly clear throughout is that Hawkins / whatever form Brenner and his experiments have taken over the years has the money and the ability to control individuals and force things. I mean, there's the whole thing with the guy who's the setup for finding the fake Will body. And there's the whole wiretapping of everything.
But it's also specific people who then get targeted. And they have agents that they have in the field who are working. They can't just bribe everyone. No. And I'm more than willing to admit, like, yeah, they had enough people on payroll in that town, in that area, doing that to, like, close it.
And I also think that, like, from a logistical point, the sister was probably fed up with her sister. Because she probably had to deal with her hijinks. But the thing that doesn't follow necessarily from that conclusion is that why the fuck would she still be taking care of her for a decade and a half?
Well, and it could be the kind of thing where she came back and was, like, fully, like, non-functional, and she was like, I'm not gonna, like, abandon my sister, but I don't believe anything the fuck that comes out of her mouth. But even so, like, again, there's just things with that I was like, this is, like, a really convenient, like, well, she stopped talking, so now there's no one to argue. And I'm like, that's kind of dumb. Like, I would have liked it better if she had been, like, intimidated out of talking. And even were still too intimidated to talk about it and was like, no, I was wrong, I made it up. No, I was wrong, I made it up. We may get
more resolution with that in the second season. Because,
because Brenner's dead. His ass got hooked.
So
his ass got
we'll see. It's
his
one
ass
of those
got
things
folded
that
9 ways.
I'm definitely somebody who's more willing to not necessarily jump through hoops and do mental gymnastics to excuse something, but I'm somebody who's more willing to see something and accept it and realize that it could be plausible because of these reasons. And you're somebody who gets irked when those details aren't there to make the connections. And I understand that.
And that's just why I'm willing to accept that is a possible thing, but if it is something that is also easily interpretable as a whole, it behooves you to explain it. Even if that's a single line of dialogue. You know? Like, well, why didn't you take her to, like, get tested and the rest of it? It's like, she was on drugs for 20 years. Yeah. I don't fucking believe anything she said. And she went silent, so, like, that's it. And that's explained to me. Like, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, boom. Smoothed away. Beautiful. And, yeah, no, I totally feel that. And it's different ways of looking at things. And it's my anal retentive need for everything to fit together. Because...
Let it never be said
that your anal retentive need for details didn't yield fruit. Last day on Earth. If I had a dick, I'd go get laid. We can do the next best thing. What's that? Kill people. Not you.
Like that we're closing out our Stranger Things podcast with references to Dogma.
No, you know, I think it's
truly
always there.
Excellent.
I think it's always there in our hearts.
Yeah.
In our minds.
What if the monster was played by Ben Affleck?
I wouldn't have actually watched the film. And the fact that Kevin Conroy came out at Comic-Con and said that Ben Affleck is the best Batman person to ever play the role.
Have you seen BVS?
No.
Okay.
I don't give a fuck. He has a line where he says, "What's your superpower? I'm rich."
Again, I think there's a lot to be said there with direction and story and actual script being crap.
Yeah.
I don't think that he was an amazing Batman, but I don't think that he's an awful Batman. I put him roughly on Kilmer level.
Okay, so B- Batman.
Basically.
He's not the best of all time.
No.
Greatest of all time is Michael Keaton.
And there's a lot to be debated there if we're talking purely live-action Batmans or if we're talking about people to ever play the character and the vocal.
Okay.
Like, I'm not saying that Michael Keaton is not the best live-action Batman, because he is. Yes. I'm not going to disagree with that.
It's an unquestionable piece of historical fact.
Most people's arguments for why he's not are fucking stupid. He was too short. He didn't look the part. Fuck you.
He's not supposed to look like Batman when he's not Batman. he's supposed to look like random fucking jackass rich dude when he's not Batman. And they did a fine job of making him look intimidating as Batman. I'd never heard that one. That's fucking stupid. That is asinine. He's the only person who actually turned in a good performance as both Bruce Wayne and Batman. Every other person to ever play it is either good as Bruce Wayne or good as Batman or poop as both. Like, fuck. And no, you're absolutely right. I do think that the voice actors have to be separated. Kevin Conroy is in a different category.
Okay.
Even if he's wrong.
I'm glad we have had this conversation in our Stranger Things podcast. I'm really excited for season 2 when it drops October 27th.
Yep.
I'll probably binge watch the whole thing in a night, because that's what I do now.
What you do. Well, everybody, have a great night. Go out and watch fucking Stranger Things. Sorry we didn't give you more info on it, but like seriously, like that there's a lot of twists and turns. You don't want spoilers. Like, watch that shit. And go eat some Eggo waffles today.
God. Remember the first time I had Eggo waffles, I was just like, these are awful. These are not food. Because I'd had actual waffles.
See, I had the opposite experience. I just burned my black and covered them with salt. Because I am an alien.
Oh, hell no! I ain't getting out of bed today.